Hello, I'm Dr. Stephen Andrew Missick, and welcome to this episode of Voice the Word. And in today's episode, we're going to be talking about Assyrian holidays, including a baptismal festival known as Nusardil.
Jesus was an Aramaic-speaking Jew of the Middle East, and the Assyrians are Aramaic-speaking Christians in the Middle East who have endured persecution for over 1,000 years. Join Voice of the Word Aramaic Bible teacher, artist, and author Stephen Missick as he examines the Bible through the ancient languages, peoples, lands, cultures, and times in which it was first revealed. Research the Scriptures, rescue persecuted Christians, and restore the Church to its Semitic roots. And now, Voice of the Word.
So this week I want to talk about certain Assyrian holidays, and on July the 25th was the festival or the feast day of the 72 disciples. And I want to mention my two books, and we have here the Further Acts of the Apostles according to Abdias of Babylon. And according to tradition, Abdias of Babylon was one of the 72 disciples of Jesus Christ. And the traditional account is that he wrote the biographies of the 12 apostles. And in this edition of the Abdias of Babylon stories, Abdias is a form of the name Obadiah, which means servant of God. I did a section on the 72 disciples. Now, we don't have right here the 70. We don't have a full list of their names, but I listed several likely candidates. So this is actually the Greek Orthodox do have a list of the names, but I don't think it's accurate. I think that they included people who were converted by Paul, like Timothy and Titus, and I don't think it's plausible that these people were among the 72. I think that there's gaps in the list. I think we can probably come up with 30 names, but they wanted to fill it out, so they just started taking names. That's my opinion. This is also, today is Nusardil, the festival of baptism, but it's also the feast day of the 12 apostles. I have this other version of the Abdias of Babylon stories, the lives of the 12 apostles according to Abdias of Babylon, disciple of Jesus Christ. I think this is a very good edition. Of course, I put this together. I illustrated it, but this edition doesn't include information on the 72. That's in the first edition. I'm working on this series, but I want to talk really quickly about what this holiday is about. It's about baptism. And the tradition is that Thomas, he's converting so many Assyrians that he does a mass baptism. And so how the Assyrians celebrate this, of course, they have the Eucharist, the Holy Qurbana. But after the solemn service, they have a water splashing party. And now they're even dunking people in water, and they got water guns. So they go around just splashing each other with water to commemorate the mass baptisms of the Assyrian people when Thomas converted them. And I want to talk about the story of St. Thomas, which is very important. Now, in the ancient accounts, it's Thomas that sends Thaddeus to convert the Assyrian people, to take the gospel to them. And Thaddeus and Mari go to take the gospel to the Assyrians. But there are traditions in the Acts of Mari which mentions that Thomas himself went to the region of Parthia. And when I was at Damascus, you have the St. Thomas Gate, where according to local traditions called Bab Koma, the Gate of Thomas. Thomas stood at this gate. Thomas stood at this gate of Damascus preaching the gospel. And Papias also mentions Thomas evangelizing the area. So Thomas went to Syria, to Mesopotamia, Assyria, and then to Parthia. What is interesting is that in the Ethiopic version of the Abdias stories, we have Thomas going to Parthia, and there at Parthia he receives the revelation to go to India. Of course, Thomas is associated with taking the gospel to India, and I had the privilege and honor of going to India, and Mar Apram Mukum, the Assyrian bishop of India, he recently passed away, very sadly, but he was very helpful and generous to make that trip, my pilgrimage to India, very helpful. We have the Gospel of Thomas, the Acts of Thomas as we have it, which is written in Aramaic, deals mostly with Thomas's missionary journeys to India. We know that Thomas evangelized the Assyrians, but there's not a lot of the legends which are written down. So we do have this traditional practice celebrating Thomas coming to the Assyrians and carrying out a mass baptism. And I want to mention that my theological education is Baptist. And with Nusardil, this holiday, Assyrians are trying to make connections to ancient Assyria. One of the problems the Assyrians face is that some people are telling the Assyrians, oh, you're not really Assyrians, you're just an Aramaic people. But Tatian the Assyrian, the disciple of Justin Martyr, he's from that region, and he was the one that wrote the first harmony of the four Gospels called the Diatessaron, which he composed in Greek and in Aramaic. And he wrote an oration against the Greek, explaining Christianity to the Western pagan Europeans. So Tatian said he was an Assyrian, so it's not like this is a new terminology, a new identity the Assyrians have assumed. It does go back to at least the early church period. So with this Nusardil holiday, they're trying to connect back to the past of the ancient Assyrians. But I think that the connection that we should seek is with the baptismal rituals of the Mandaeans. So who are the Mandaeans? Well, the Mandaeans are the disciples of St. John the Baptist. And according to their ancient traditions, John the Baptist is their prophet who revealed to them their religion and baptized Jesus. And then during the time of the Jewish War, which culminated in 70 AD, they migrated. They fled to Mesopotamia where they still live. Now you have the same thing with the Assyrians. You have an international Mandaean diaspora. The name Mandaean means knowledge, and they are Gnostics. They're the only surviving Gnostic group. In the early church period, there was all kinds of Gnostics. You had Gnostics that claimed to be Christians, and this group claimed to be disciples of this John the Baptist. They still exist, and they perform baptismal rituals every Sunday. So their symbol is called a manda, which is a cross with a cloth hanging over it. It's clearly a Christian symbol. Of course, they disassociate the symbol from Christianity and say it just happens to look like a cross. But they don't consider themselves Christians. And some of the Mandaeans say they don't believe in Jesus, but there are evidence that some Mandaeans, at least in the past, did believe in Jesus. But this is the Mandaean religion, and they also use Aramaic. Their sacred texts, their book of St. John the Baptist, are in Aramaic. But with my Baptist background, I think it's very interesting how they do what you call believers' baptism by immersion. One of the oldest churches ever discovered, the Church of Dura Europos, has a baptismal pool in it for full immersion baptism for adults. I was reading a Catholic translation of the Bible recently by Monsignor Knox, and he was mentioning how Paul describes baptism as an immersion. And in Greek, the word baptizo means to submerge or to immerse. So recently, another thing is Sam Shamoun started off as a member. He's the Assyrian Encyclopedia. He debates Muslims. He started off as a member of the Assyrian Church of the East. Then he converted to Islam. Then he saw the error of his ways, and he became a Baptist, an evangelical Christian and a Baptist. And he debated with the Muslims as a novice, not really prepared, and they humiliated him in a debate. So what Sam Shamoun did was he memorized the Quran, memorized the Hadith, and he's able to just demolish Muslims in argumentation. They're afraid of him because he has such knowledge of Islam, and he knows their texts, which are very embarrassing, and he shows the internal contradictions and inconsistencies and the fallacy of Islam. But recently, Sam Shamoun has converted to Catholicism, and now he's attacking Baptists. And I did a video on this, we're going more in depth. I don't believe it's good in this day and age, in the situation that we're in, when we got so many battles to fight against wickedness, against false religion, against Islam, against communism, against totalitarianism, people hurting, lives destroyed. We need to be bringing the message of hope, love, and compassion that Jesus taught to all the world. It doesn't do good for Christians to fight among themselves, but that's what Sam Shamoun has decided to do for whatever reason. Pray for him. And he put a video out, and he was invited to speak on the Patrick Bet David show, which is a great opportunity. And he's embarrassed to go because he's put on a lot of weight. And also, funny thing about Sam Shamoon is he idolized Hulk Hogan, and Hulk Hogan passed away. But Hulk Hogan, he was talking about his testimony. He gave his heart to Jesus when he was 14 years old, I guess at a church camp. He was invited to play. I guess he's doing rock and roll too at that time. And, well, he became famous and successful, and he wasn't consistently living his life, even though he believed that. And about 2 years ago, he came out and said that, he's just going to put everything on the line and give his life to Jesus Christ, and he was baptized. And I guess that means something to Sam Shamoon. He posted a picture of Jesus welcoming Hulk Hogan into heaven, but Hulk Hogan was evangelical, and Sam Shamoon is treating us like we're Satanists, basically, now. So, how are we saved? Is it through the work of Jesus Christ on the cross, through accepting Christ in your heart and being spiritually transformed and regenerated? Isn't that what's important? There's a lot of things we can disagree about. There's a lot of things we do agree about. But I think the most important thing is sincerely opening your heart to Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior. And of course, Hulk Hogan was baptized. He was baptized when he was young, but he felt like he needed to do it again because of his wayward lives. You can get attracted by, you're famous, and there's, all the sex and drugs and rock and roll, these distractions that get us off the path. And he succumbed to that over the years. But, he didn't have to do it. He publicly repented of his sins and acknowledged his spiritual walk, his failures, and committed himself to totally just sacrificing his life to Jesus Christ. So I do believe, despite Sam Shamoon's attacks, that I, as an evangelical, am faithful to the apostolic tradition. The ultimate source of apostolic tradition is the writings of the apostles in the New Testament. And as an evangelical, a lot of what I believe and teach and preach is affirmed. I've read the Doctrine of Adai, and I agree, which is the traditional Aramaic life of the Apostle Thaddeus, and it's the story of his bringing the gospel to the Assyrian people. And the sermons that Thaddeus preaches in the Doctrine of Adai is reflective of what I believe as an evangelical Christian. It's a good book, and I think that it's good to focus on things that unite Christians, things that we agree on, and the Doctrine of Adai is a good book. So I want to look at how this holiday is celebrated by the Assyrians, which is a celebration of the baptism. And I don't think it's really related to, if it's related to anything, just recently they had the Great Eid, the great festival of the Mandaeans. And they in the Baptist tradition, we have one faith, one Lord, one baptism. And we believe that baptism is a baptism of repentance. So you confess you're a sinner, you repent, and you're born again, and then as a confession of your faith, you're baptized by immersion. That's the way we do it. And the Mandaeans, which are, I guess, they're Gnostic Assyrian, which is what they are today, basically, followers of John the Baptist, they do baptisms much the same way that we as Baptists do, except they come forward. It's interesting, they worship on Sunday. But as a Mandaean, you're baptized again and again and again. And on their festivals, like the Great Eid, and they also have another holiday, they do mass baptisms. But as Baptists, we only do one faith, one Lord, one baptism. We're baptized by immersion as a confession and the mark of accepting Christ as our Savior. We do that only once. Unless you go to the Jordan River on a pilgrimage, then a lot of Baptists are rebaptized. This is because you're there. This is the Jordan River. This is where Jesus was baptized. So I would do that. I was at the Jordan River, but I wasn't able to. I was all by myself, and there's a process at this place where they're doing baptisms. You have to go and check in and everything. I didn't have anybody with me. If I came with a group, I could have done a baptism. But this was at Beth Arbara, at the southern point of the Sea of Galilee. But the main baptism place, John the Baptist probably went up and down the Jordan River baptizing people. But the main baptism place is close to the Dead Sea on the southern region of the Jordan River. But I believe probably both sites are authentic because it's very likely that John the Baptist is traveling up and down the Jordan River baptizing at various places. And Jesus did it. According to the Gospel of John, Jesus baptized After John the Baptist was in prison, Jesus' disciples also baptized. This is part of his ministry. That's not in the Synoptic Gospel, so people often overlook that. So baptism is important, and so I want to reflect on this celebration of baptism among the Assyrians. And so they splash water on each other. I remember I went to an Ethiopian Orthodox church once, and part of the rituals, the priest was he was taking holy water and he splashes people during the services. It's like, what is this? All of a sudden you got splashed. But and the other thing is, with the Coptic Christians, they do infant baptism, but they immerse their babies in baptism because, like I said, the Coptic people use Egyptian for their church services, but Coptic has a lot of Greek words in it. And, it's understanding the word baptizo in Greek means to baptize. In conclusion, I want to make a few prayer requests. I want to pray for the situation in Syria. We have this dictator. He's an ISIS fighter who's now the president, so-called president of Syria. His name on the battlefield is Giuliani, and I probably saw him when I was in Iraq working at a detainee facility. I laid eyes on this villain when I was at Camp Cropper. He should never have been released. Now he's taken over Syria, and since he's taken office, if that's what you want to call it, he's been killing Christians, Yazidi, and Druze all over Syria. He's killed probably thousands of people now. Thousands are displaced in Suwaida. He went and killed a pastor there. He killed an entire church. Everybody, just taking Druze off the streets and just executing them. It's horrific. It's horrific. And this dictator has got to be deposed. And I believe, people look at the challenge of Islam. I want to recommend Raymond Ibrahim. He's a Coptic Christian who's speaking out against Islam very boldly, very effectively. He's written some excellent books, and now he's YouTubing, so I want to recommend you look at his channel. But he's looking at the future with despair. But when I see what David Wood is doing, and I see that we've made some great inroads in Islam, bringing them the truth and knowledge, saving knowledge of Jesus Christ, I also believe that God is going to, I feel in my spirit, God's had enough of the atrocities committed by fanatical Muslims. I believe God's going to judge them soon. I believe we're going to see divine judgment fall on the Muslim world. And we're already seeing it, millions of people leaving Islam. It's going to happen. So I don't look at the future with dismay. I'm looking at with hope. Muslim leaders themselves are complaining about, they call it an avalanche of apostasy, Muslims leaving the Islamic religion. And but still, that's hope for the future, which I do have. But right now, Christians, Alawites, and Druze are being murdered by this vicious madman. And he's got to be deposed. I also believe within a year this man will be deposed. I talk about this in other videos, but please pray about the situation. Giuliani sent some of his ISIS fighters into a church, the church of the prophet Elijah in Damascus. They went in the church of the prophet Elijah. They killed about 25 people. And their martyrdom has been commemorated. And I think it's a beautiful mural that was created showing Elijah the prophet and his chariot of fire escorting the souls, the blood of our martyrs, escorting their spirits into heaven. So let's remember the martyrs there, and let's pray for the safety and protection. When Giuliani is deposed, which I believe is going to happen within a year, Assyrians, a lot of them have been displaced, but I've been to a lot of the Assyrian villages in Hasaki, the city of Hasaki and the area around there. That's our property as Assyrians. As Assyrians, that's Assyrian property, and we're going to take it back. That's our property as Christians, and we're not going to let these people, we're not going to let Kurds or Muslims or anybody take the property we own away from us as Christians. So we need to reclaim what the devil has taken away from us, and the Assyrians need to resettle our villages. Soon, Assyria is going to be renewed, and Syria is going to be stable, and the Assyrian people need to be ready for that. I also want to ask for prayer for a couple of other things. Mar Awa, the patriarch of the Assyrian Church of the East, who I've known for a long time, he's coming to Houston for the first time, and I'm going to go and meet him, but I have some obligations. My uncle is in bad health. Pray for him, and pray that I'm able to meet with Mar Awa and my Assyrian friends, the Assyrian community. I haven't visited that church in over a year. It's not my fault. It's because of just circumstances that I've had to deal with, but I'm becoming re-engaged with this Assyrian Christian ministry. I think it's important. Plus, I'm refreshing all my Aramaic, bringing all this knowledge I had back up. And I'm going to be speaking at Assyrian Martyrs Day in the Assyrian community of Turlock, California. So pray that goes very well. And I've also decided to finally publish my doctoral thesis, which is entitled, The Apostle to the Migrants, where I'm going to be talking about mostly the Assyrian refugee crisis, but also the global refugee crisis. And of course, I worked 3 years on the southern border with the military. And we should have mercy and compassion, but this migration issue has gotten out of control, and it's just necessary to have border enforcement, immigration enforcement, and massive deportations. It's got to be done because we have so much upheaval. I mean, Western Europe is being Islamicized, and it's going to collapse soon. And I want to mention there's a good Christian movie I saw called Super Spreader. I think it's by Steve Frecht, and he's trying to do ministry in Canada, and basically they're trying to arrest him just for having worship services. So we're seeing these left-wing secular progressives. They hate Christianity. They say they hate Christianity. They're pretty overt about it. They love Islam. And we see persecution is already beginning. Promotion of Islam and suppression and repression of Christians. It's going on in Canada. It's going on in Germany. It's going on in England, United Kingdom. And it's a very disturbing trend. And we have to stand up to it. Someone tries to strip your rights. Look, we got to think about the apostles and how they suffered for their faith. They took a stand, and most of them gave their lives as martyrs. So we cannot give in to religious persecution. And we had a very bad negative precedent under COVID where the government forced churches to stop and close. So it's time to stand up and reaffirm our religious liberties. So I want to show some clips here. An Assyrian song, which you can read along with, excerpts from that. I want to recommend you go and watch the entire video and support our Assyrian artists and performers.
Nusardil من مخنتي ترى ناطا ماريوس بدم آتي بريخا نوزر دلقاتك جلخا شباب آتي من مخنتي ترى ناطا ماريوس بدم آتي
And I have a news clip from Al Jazeera, which I don't like. Al Jazeera showing the Mandaeans.
Men, women, and children submerge in running water of the Tigris River to cleanse their bodies and wash away their sins. This baptism is a Mandaean ritual. Also known as Sabians in Iraq, they are the followers of a monotheistic religion which predates Islam and Christianity. Qadir comes here every year for Eid al-Banja, a 5-day festival where everyone dresses in white. He must change into the special robes and head to the river. They pray before being baptized in the chilly water. After the ritual, it's time for reflection. The grandfather explains the belt worn around the robe is made with 61 threads, representing 61 angels. Qadir loves being here.
I like meeting friends and playing here. I like this festival more than others because we get baptized in the water.
After the baptism, food is served, which is cooked using clay from the riverbed. During the Banja festival, all food must be washed in the river, and they must drink from it as well. Their patriarch is John the Baptist, called Prophet Yahya in Arabic. And Mandaeans say all good comes from a world of light, and all evil from the world of darkness. Sattar Jabbar al-Hilu is the religion's grand sheikh or priest.
Mandaeism is the first religion of the world. We believe in one God who created life, and he is everlasting. Our holy book is Ginza Rabbah, or the first books of prophets Adam, Sheet, and Yahya. We believe in charity for the poor. The running water gives us purification.
One of the things that's going on right now, and Tucker Carlson, I suspect he's been bought off by the Saudis and the Qataris, because now Tucker Carlson is not just attacking Israel, he's attacking evangelical Christians as well. And now Tucker Carlson is advocating for Islam in his programs. So something's happened to him. He's taken this money and now he's advocating for Muslim governments, for the regime of Iran and other radical Muslim. It's bizarre, it's troubling. I liked Tucker. It breaks my heart to see him turn against Christ and Christ's people. He attacks Israel, but he doesn't say anything in defense of persecuted Christians in Muslim countries. And like I said, he advocates for totalitarian Islamist regimes. It's very sad. But the Qatari are starting to give money to young people and people that are on TikTok to try to promote Islam to our youth. I think their efforts are going to fail, but we need to be reaching out to our youth to bring them to the Lord. If you don't do it, people like the Islamic nation, radical Muslim nation, the Qatar. I've been to Qatar too. It's a nice country. It seemed to be. I used to like to read the Arabian Nights stories. You have the Arabian sailboat, like Sinbad the Sailor used, called the Dhow. So when I was in Iraq, I went to Qatar and I sailed around on the Arabian sailboat, like Sinbad the Sailor, I guess, since I found those stories. Charming, entertaining. People don't realize that many of the best stories in the Arabian Nights were actually written by an Aramaic Christian. So they're Christian in origin and not Islamic. So that should be remembered. So pray for me. Pray for the Christians of Syria as they suffer persecution. Pray for divine protection. Pray that God would soon execute justice on this terrorist leader of Syria, and that the people would be given a reprieve, and then a moderate leader would come to power. It happened in Egypt. We had a corrupt leader, Mubarak. He was overthrown. Someone much worse came into power, Morsi, but then he was overthrown, and a moderate was able to assume power, and now Egypt is better for it. And I'm believing the same thing's going to happen in Syria. This Al-Shara Julani character is not going to be in power much longer, and we're going to have a genuine moderate. We're going to have a genuine moderate regime in Syria. So pray for these issues. Pray for me as I meet Mar Awa. Pray for Mar Awa, and pray for my new book coming out, which is The Apostle of the Migrants, which is my doctoral thesis based on. Actually, I went over to the Assyrian homeland to confront ISIS for myself. I couldn't just stay at home, while these atrocities were going on. I had to go and see what's going on, meet with the militias, and see what I could do to help the situation. So I write about that, my experiences and research in the book, which should be out in a week. So stay tuned for more programs. And remember, I'm on Rumble. There's like draconian censorship on YouTube. YouTube took down my channel. I had 5,000 subscribers. I had a moderately successful YouTube channel. It took me a long time to build up that audience and a lot of work, and they took it away from me. I didn't even violate, there's no obscenities. I think the main reason why they took my YouTube channel down was because of Trump support. But this content that you see on this video was typical of like 85 to 90% of my content. And when I'm doing a political video, it's very similar to this, right? Just I'm authentically me, and yet censorship. Look at what's going on in Canada right now. But I don't think it's gonna. I just have hope for the future. And since we have a bright future, it's time for us to get busy for the work of the Lord here in America, but also around the world. God's going to give us a time of spiritual renewal, but there's a lot of work that we have to do to rebuild and restore all the things that we've lost these past few years. The Lord's going to bless us, and we're going to thrive. So let's get ready for what God's doing. And like I said, these can be very exciting times. So Turlock is going to be Assyrian Martyrs Day, August the 7th. I'll try to record and post my presentation. So thank you, and God bless you.
شفرة إبياتي خمر سلوطة مسكتي شاتي الماتيني شافرتك شافرياتي بالشافرتة من كل ما تباتي ماتيني
Research, rescue, and restore. Help Voice of the Word and Aramaic Christian Ministries mission research the ancient languages, peoples, lands, cultures, and times of the Bible. Rescue persecuted Assyrian Christians in the Middle East and restore Christianity to its original Semitic roots. For Stephen Missick's books, online giving, and other resources from Aramaic Christian Ministries, visit www.stephenmissick.com. Join us next time on Voice of the Word as we research the Scriptures, rescue persecuted Christians, and restore the Church to its Semitic roots.